Our name is Ghosts Want You Dead. And they probably want you to stay dead. Something, something, zombie Jesus. Happy Easter.
Hello, I'm Matthew.
And I'm Rebecca.
Rebecca, on account of the events of the evening, I did not prepare any fun this week in 1967 business.
Well, you did have a little flood.
Yes,
So
we are
plagues and locusts.
located in a depressing plains state, and while we were watching the show to prepare to record, there were several tornado warnings happening in our area. And my husband and I live in a shitty little, what we are pretty sure is an illegal garage apartment. It's hard to get mail here. I think our address doesn't really exist. And also, it is prone to flooding when there is heavy rain. This was a problem when we first moved in about a year ago. And after much back and forth with the maintenance people and the management company, we thought it had been fixed. And the last few times it rained, we have not had flooding. But this evening there was quite heavy rain for a sustained period, and water began coming in like 3 different places in our tiny apartment.
And it was funny because earlier in the evening, we were discussing their potential plans to sign another lease or something like that. And after the great flood of 2026, we've been intermittently apartment shopping for Matthew and his husband.
I was going to say this is not the great flood, we've had worse
That's
here,
true.
but
Yeah.
that would have been 2025, so
Yeah, that's true.
hopefully this is the only one of this year, and I'm sure you're all fascinated by that, but the moral of the story is that I didn't prepare anything cute to talk about beforehand.
Well, instead of telling them what was happening in 1967, you were
We
telling them what
told
happened
them what
today.
happened on Friday, April 3rd.
Yes.
Resident podcast ghost always waits until we record to start making noise, so she either lays her ghostly head in mine or Rebecca's lap and starts snoring loudly, which I'm sure you haven't heard at all. I know you have, as I have heard it when editing. Or like right now, she's in her crate gnawing on her bone. The bone from her corpse because she is a ghost or
Yeah,
whatever.
it's very cute because it's just also called bone, and that's charming.
Yes, we do call it bone. Uh,
She's the cutest ghost.
anyway, this time instead of snoring, you're going to hear gnawing, and I'm sorry. Maybe one day we will release an episode that sounds good.
Or an episode starring the ghost. People would
Anyhow,
like that.
something else we could talk about, and this might go on the bonus episode.
Mhm.
I was telling Rebecca before we watched 1967 Dark Shadows this evening that yesterday I accidentally went on a little TV binge and watched both the failed 2004 Dark Shadows pilot and the entirety of the 1991 revival series. And it was great fun. My husband told me, because he is a bad husband and does not listen to our podcast, but he was around while I was watching it and kind of getting into it, and I was catching him up. And he told me, if your podcast was about this one, I would listen to it.
That
Be-
I don't know what to think of that.
Well, his reasoning is sound in that I'm not going to spoil much from the 1991 revival, but It covers most of the storylines for the first 460 episodes of
Yeah.
the 60s Dark Shadows. So instead of going on for 6 weeks about Murder Pin or something,
Sure.
like, things happen pretty quickly because they pack 500 episodes of soap opera into 12 45-minute episodes. And we will be covering it eventually, but not until roughly June of 2027 is the current plan. However, I do think we will do the 2004 failed pilot before then as just a one-off or maybe a special episode, like, for our anniversary
Yeah.
or for Halloween or something. But I will throw out a fun bit of trivia about the failed 2004 pilot. Actually, 2 bits. What got me started watching these is I happened to read that an actor from the 2004 pilot is a voice actor in 2 video games that I enjoy. He is the voice of Adam Smasher in Cyberpunk 2077, which is my most played video game.
That is a fun game. I've watched you play it. I don't think I've ever played it.
And then also, he is the voice of the lead character in Still Wakes the Deep, which is a nice Lovecraftian Scottish oil rig game that is fun. Anyway, that's what got me started watching. So there's that guy. And then also one of Rory's little boyfriends from Gilmore Girls is on the 2004 pilot. And as Carolyn's daughter, Jessica Chastain.
I kind of love that though.
And we may have already talked about this, but the only thing I'll say about 1991 Dark Shadows for now is that David Collins, Little David of the Damned Corn, is played by baby Joseph Gordon-Levitt, which was a trip.
He
Uh,
showed me a picture. It was pretty good.
so fun things in the future.
Things to look forward to.
Also fun things now where Bird Lady is,
Burden.
revving up her engines and getting ready to do some bird antics, and
It's fun.
so why don't we talk all about it?
Episode 141. Victoria Winters tells us David doesn't know if he wants to go with Mother Mother, and Liz is against it. David is drawing in the drawing room, and Vicky comes in and asks how he is and if he's had any more dreams. And
He's drawing a picture of a phoenix after hearing Laura's creepy little story, and he says that he likes the story. Also, he likes his mom now. And Vicky is reassuring about all this. "Well, that's good that you like your mom and you're not being a little bitch about it anymore." And David creepily tells Vicky that he has ways of finding out if mommy really loves him. Opening credits.
we see a close up of David's drawing, and it is a phoenix,
But it's
but it's a cute, weird phoenix, like a little pigeon on fire.
and it's very juvenile, like, it looks like a kindergartner did it, which is funny because we've already seen, like, the sketch that he did of the house earlier that was considerably more proficient, and now he's doing little crayon
Well,
scrawlings.
maybe because he's like hypnotized. I don't know. He can do more primitive. But yeah, it is weird. Like it is a very different drawing style.
Perhaps they
But
just forgot we had already seen David's drawings
sure,
before.
it was a cute, chunky little bird screaming in the flames. I was tickled.
Vicky calls David a little creep for his phoenix fixation and his particular excitement about the bit where the bird burns itself alive, and he calls Vicky a scaredy cat. Laura turns up and invites herself in, and she's come to ask Vicky to let David fuck off school for today so they can hang out. You expect Vicky to say no, but David's been being creepy and annoying, so she's like, "Shit, yeah," and runs off to play hooky.
Please fucking take this kid.
David tells Mother that he wants to take her somewhere, but it's a surprise, and he asks her if she believes in ghosts. She says that she does not. Over at the Evanses, Maggie answers the door to Vicky, having invited herself over there without calling. They chit-chat about how Sam is a drunk and Vicky is maybe getting fired, and gee, don't they have fun. But Vicky fills Maggie in about all the gossip about Laura, and Maggie pries a little bit because of course she does, but also because she's worried about Sam. And she says 3 times, like, "No, I don't wanna gossip," or "I don't wanna become a gossip," and I'm like, "Baby, it's too late."
Yeah, we're like, "Girl."
Maggie is
No, you are.
suspicious of Laura, but Vicky likes her and says she's a real nice lady, and Maggie replies, "Yeah, she does seem like a real nice lady, but a whole lot of weird shit has been happening since she came to town." And I can see how Vicky wouldn't maybe buy that at first because the same was said of her when she turned up.
Right.
Back at Collinwood, David has taken Laura to see the old house, and she's kind of creeped out by it. He's telling her all about his ghost friends and wants to introduce her, but she is not into this at all.
But he's calling for Josette, and, he's calling, "Josette, Josette, come on out," and Mother is acting spooked, and David continues to call out for her, but he also calls Mother on it, like, "Oh, you're scared," and she's like, "No, I just wanna get the fuck out of here," and he calls out to Josette, hoping she'll appear, and Mother wants to get the fuck out of there. She seems to not want to meet Josette. David keeps trying, but finally gives up, and he's kinda cute, and it's just like, "Oh, I guess she's not gonna appear for us." And then he changes his mind and decides to leave Mother there to see if Josette will appear, which again, Mother does not like the idea, but David runs off and leaves her there. And she goes toward the painting, and then Josette is doing her spooky blinky lights thing, so that's fun.
And Laura doesn't seem so much scared as annoyed
Like,
and
"Who is this
just
bitch and what does she want?" Or well, she knows, I think, but yeah, she's bothered by Josette,
but then David comes back in asking if anything happened,
and
and
she's like, "Nope."
Laura lies and says, "No, not a thing." And he's disappointed, but as they exit, Josette does her little glowing trick some more. Back over at the Evanses, Vicky is trying to get Maggie to explain why she's so worried about Laura. So now Maggie catches her up all about Sam freaking out about Laura and the spooky bird lady painting, and Vicky wants to see, but Maggie at first refuses because Sam wouldn't like that, but then Vicky asks a couple more questions and Maggie's like, "Okay, I'll show you the painting," because
It
she
twisted
really
my
wanted
arm.
to after all. And she shows Vicky the painting to spooky music. Vicky is confused. Sam enters, drunk, of course, and he is pleased to see Vicky until he notices that the spooky bird lady painting is uncovered. And then he starts yelling into Maggie's face about it.
Of
And
course.
he's furious that she told Vicky his spooky business, and he swears Vicky to secrecy. Back in the drawing room at Collinwood, David and Laura are sitting damn near in the fire,
Yeah.
and he shows her his drawing of the phoenix. She asks what inspired him, and he admits that he liked her story. She starts to manipulate him and is like, "Well, I'm going to have to go back to where I came from soon, and do you think you might like to visit me there?" And she's being vague and spooky about it. And we get a bunch of fun crossfades between in-person Laura and painting Laura
Yeah.
in
She
credits.
tells him all he has to do is to want to go, and then it's all, "Ooh, spooky." Uh, yeah, then end credits.
Episode 142, Victoria Winters reminds us that Sam's hand is possessed to paint only bird ladies. At the Evanses, he wonders aloud what made him paint the painting. Maggie and Vicky are trying to calm him down. He freaks out about being afraid of the painting, and he grabs it and says he's going to take it and throw it in the ocean. But Vicky stops him and says that she wants to have it. She's Sam's biggest fan, of course. She wants this one, and she also has
Yeah, I was
another
thinking that
painting of
too.
his that looks like her. Uh, Maggie and Sam are confused, and everybody argues about it for a bit. Sam says the painting is evil and horrible and thinks it's pretty weird that Vicky wants it, but
Vicky
he relents and gives it to her anyway.
yeah. Vicky takes it and then turns around and asks what he was planning on putting in the blank spot. Sam says he doesn't know, but if she decides to get rid of it, you better not fucking bring it back here. He's like, "Take that cursed thing and burn it." He then decides to go to the Blue Whale and drink away the pain as usual and leaves. Maggie apologizes to Vicky for her dad, a habit she is both prone and used to. And she really doesn't understand why Vicky wants this painting, and Vicky says she doesn't understand either, she just wants it, and it feels like the real reason she came there today, like, that was the purpose, she was being led to it, and I was kinda like, "Poor Maggie," like, "Oh, I didn't really come to hang out with you, I was here on a spooky painting mission." Like, "Okay." Maggie offers to wrap the painting and wonders what Laura will think when she sees it, which, we're about to find out.
I did think that was funny that Maggie's like, "Let me wrap that up so people don't see what a fucking weirdo you are carrying that
That
thing
I
around town."
forgot I was about to say that.
Back at Collinwood in the drawing room, Laura is scolding David for reading by firelight, telling him to turn some damn lights on. You're gonna mess up your eyes. David tells her that she's pretty beautiful for a mother, and she's like, "Oh, her mother's not supposed to be pretty?" He's like, "Well, to be fair, I don't have any friends, so I don't know any moms, so I don't have a lot to go on," but he continues to flatter her and tell her that she looks like a movie star. And then he starts to ask about Burke, getting her to admit that she had dated him in the past, and he asks what Burke used to be like, and Laura speaks highly of him and was like, "He was fun, and I liked spending time with him, and he was nice to be around." So David asks, "Well, why didn't you marry him instead of my shitty father?" David wonders what it would be like to have Burke for a father, and he thinks it would be nice because Burke is nice and listens to him when he talks. And
Isn't just yeah.
Laura changes the subject and asks David how he feels about Roger. And David admits that they just don't like each other very much. She's pleased at this because it gives her the opportunity to force him into choosing between his parents and is like, "Well, if you had to pick, would you rather live with me or shitty old Roger who you hate?" Vicky enters and breaks this up, and David is curious about the wrapped painting that she has and wants to see it. Laura agrees and is like, "Yeah, let's see." Vicky is apprehensive at first, but then unwraps it for them, and they both look on shocked. David is excited. He says it's an exact depiction of the scary mother-mother dream that he had. David wants to know how Sam possibly could have known his dream to replicate it so clearly. Laura is upset to learn he had a dream like that, and she is pissed. She's real mad at Vicky for bringing that in the house. She asks what she intends to do with it, and Vicky doesn't have an answer, so David asks if he can have it. Laura clearly does not want him to have it, and they're going back and forth about it. Laura and Vicky both try to talk David out of wanting to have the painting, but he's very curious and wonders what goes in the blank spot. And he begs and begs to have it, and Laura finally caves and agrees that he can have the painting, and he's just thrilled. He scurries upstairs to hang it and asking Vicky to come up to help. Laura stops her to be like, "Listen, bitch, that's gross. Why did you do that?" But Vicky says she just can't explain why she did it. It's like she just felt compelled to. And then Laura seems to soften a little bit and is like, "Well, okay, but since you hang out with David so much on account of being his teacher, when you get a chance, I want you to steal that painting."
Yeah, it was weird, and also, the painting is getting a lot of screen time, and the more I looked at it, the more I was like, "It looks like it should be airbrushed on the side of a van, like, next to a tiger ripping a fat one," like, or a wizard, like, it's very, like
Well,
it's pretty
Sam's
great.
talents, even when possessed, are limited, and it's van art or motel art.
Right,
Those
those are
are
your
his 2
options.
speeds.
That's what you got. I just thought it was funny.
Upstairs, Vicky warns David that Mother does not like him having that painting, but he doesn't care, he loves it and hangs it up. Vicky says that it looks strange, and David's like, "Well, yeah, that's why I like it. That's my whole deal is I'm a little creep."
Don't you know?
Laura comes in and tries to take the painting, but David blackmails her and says, "Oh, that's fine, but if you take it, I'll never speak to you again." So she agrees to leave it, but warns there are certain things he'll just have to learn for himself. And she leaves. David laments to Vicky that Mother is mad at him, and Vicky says, "Yeah, she is, and for good reason. That painting is pretty weird, and you're weird for wanting it, even though I wanted it 15 minutes ago, but
She's weird for
whatever."
bringing it, but yeah.
Yeah.
Back at the Evanses', Sam gets home and Maggie's there waiting for him. He's drunk and jovial and glad to be free of the painting.
And is nice to Maggie for like 2 minutes for possibly the first time
Yeah.
on this show.
Maggie wants him to go to bed and he wants to paint seascapes. And she goes on to bed and he starts to paint, but starts painting a scary, angry mother. In David's room, the painting starts doing a similar trick to Josette's glowing blinky lights thing. And then suddenly, the disembodied actual head of Mother starts small coming out of the painting and is growing in size and just in the darkness like it's just this big it's just her face taking up the whole room and it's really funny. This wakes David who screams, "Stop, stay away. Ah." End credits.
Episode 143.
Victoria
Victoria Winters
Winters.
reminds us that today was weird, but now it's nighttime, which is also weird. David yells for Aunt Elizabeth to come to his room, and she does and asks him what the matter is. He's scared and says it's because of the painting, and Liz is not quite up to speed and is like, "What painting?" and looks and kind of grimaces. Vicky comes in, having heard David yelling, and David tells them all about Mother's scary face coming out of the painting and getting all big like. Opening credits. Liz comforts David, assuring him that it was all just a dream, and he tells them it was not, he was wide awake.
She tells him not to cry because men aren't allowed to show emotion in the 60s. Just the 60s.
I don't know, I probably would have told him not to cry too, at least if I were Vicky, to be like, "Why are you being a little bitch? You wanted it so bad, you've got it now." Just like your mom threatened you with, like, "Oh, you wanna keep this painting? Sure. Hope you sleep well tonight." But Liz thinks they should get rid of the painting after she asks where the creepy thing came from,
She's like, "Sam Evans? What do you do?"
and at
What?
first, when Liz wants to get rid of the painting, David's like, "Yeah, I guess you better on account of it being haunted by my witch mom." And so she goes to grab it, and then David suddenly reverses and begs her to leave it and says he really does want it after all. And they're just like, "Fucking fine, whatever." And the ladies leave, and David gets back into bed for their benefit. But then, as soon as he's alone again, he creeps out of bed and approaches the painting. In the drawing room, Vicky and Liz worry about David's nightmares. Liz asks Vicky why on earth she would bring that creepy, ugly painting home, and Vicky can't explain it. Liz asks what Laura thought about it, and Vicky is like, "Oh, she didn't care for it at all," and this clearly tickles Liz a little bit, but she doesn't say that. Vicky changes the subject to how she's about to get fired, and Liz is like, "Oh, don't worry about that. Don't be so sure that David is going anyplace," and she goes on to explain that they agreed that Laura could have David only if he wants to go live with her, and she and Roger deem her to be a fit parent. Liz thinks that, David is clearly scared of Laura and gives him weird nightmares, so it's probably not a good idea for him to go live with her. So this is the first time Liz is like, "Oh no, I'm keeping him."
Yeah.
Upstairs in his room, David is staring into his crystal ball, and he climbs up on his dresser to turn on the lamp and stare more closely at the painting. He's clearly trying to consult the great beyond as to whatever is going on.
At the Evanses', Sam is painting again, and Vicky and David are at the door. She asks if Maggie's home, and Sam says no. She says David wanted to come and thank him because she gave him the spooky Mother painting. David does thank him and says that he likes spooky stuff, and he asks why he painted his mother, and Sam says, well, she's a pretty lady. He keeps asking questions, and Vicky tells him not to be rude, essentially, and he says he just wants to know why Sam painted his dream, and he explains that the dream was the same as the painting, and Sam seems intrigued by this, and David explains the dream of burning up with Mother, and
The
he
spooky
asks.
Laura's up to something music starts
Yeah.
playing.
David asks again why he painted the scene, and Sam says, "Maybe we're psychic friends." And he's like, "Really?" Because he loves that. He's like, "Oh, yeah, let's be psychic friends." And Sam plays around with that, and he's like, "Well, I'm reading your mind now, and you want cider and cookies." And I was like, "Sam, you're reading my mind. I want cider and cookies. That sounds real good." But I can be easily tempted. Anyway, he's like, "Yeah, I've got cookies and cider. Go in the kitchen. Get the hell out of here." He goes, and he tells him not to worry too much about the dream or the painting. Once David's gone for cookies, Sam admits to Vicky that he's had the same vision as the dream. And Vicky's like, really? He says he started another painting today and it frightens him. He says he started out as a seascape and it ended up like this. And he shows her the picture and it looks a fair bit. The painting bears a strong resemblance to Catherine O'Hara as Moira Rose, as the crow doctor lady with the crazy wig. But I was tickled by that and henceforth referred to that painting as Moira painting of Moira.
She asks Sam if this is going to be Laura again because the face isn't finished and he doesn't know. She also asks what will go into the empty David shaped space. He doesn't know. He gets shouty at her and goes to have a drink. Vicky explains to Sam that she didn't even really like the painting. She was just compelled to take it to Collinwood. But she's afraid of it. Though something made her take it and made her show it to David as if she were forced. And Sam relates. He says he wants to just forget about the whole thing and she ought to do the same. But David interrupts Sam's frantic shouting to offer Vicky some cookies, but she declines and says they ought to be going and sends him to get his coat. So David thanks Sam again and they leave.
Oh, that's where she fat shames him and is like, "Oh, you've had enough cookies for the both of us." I was like, "Okay, Vicky, Jesus."
After Sam has another drink while he's alone and glares at the canvas, he begins to paint again, slack jawed and vacant. As David and Vicky return to Collinwood, Liz stops them in the foyer to tell David that Mrs. Johnson is waiting for him with his lunch. So maybe that's why Vicky mentioned that. Not because he's fat, but because it's lunchtime.
No, sure, but just in general, she was like, "You've had enough for the both of us." I was like, I don't know.
Well, Vicky explains about how she let him have cookies at the Evanses'. And Liz doesn't like that she took him over there because Sam is a horrible old drunk, so I wouldn't like that either.
Also, they're the pores, but
Yeah. At this point, they are interrupted by a Lieutenant Riley with the state police arriving, and Liz answers the door. The cop asks to see Laura, so Liz invites him in. He has some questions about the fire in Phoenix, and Liz says, "Well, she's not here in the house proper. She's my sister in law and she's in a cottage on the property. Let me take you." And without her offering, the cop oddly is like, "Well, I have some stuff of hers here. Maybe you could identify it, even though you've just offered to take me directly to her," which seems weird, but he wants to show Liz this jewelry. So they go into the drawing room and Vicky is looking on while the cop shows Liz some jewelry recovered from the burnt apartment in Phoenix. Liz picks out a locket, which she says, "Oh, I recognize this. This is a family heirloom that my brother gave her when they got married." Vicky steps in to say, "Oh, Laura was wearing one exactly like that just the other day. And I remember specifically because she was telling me all about how she kept a piece of David's hair in it." So the cop, out of curiosity, pries open the locket, finding it also contains hair. Theremin sting. End credits.
episode 144.
Victoria Winters reminds us that Laura is a mysterious lady, a mystery lady, one might say. Ooh, spooky thunder crash.
Thematic.
I hope that picked up on the microphone.
I hope so too.
Victoria is still explaining to Liz and the cop about having seen Laura wear that exact same locket just the other day, even though it was in a burnt out apartment in Phoenix at the time. Liz and the cop start to leave to go ask Laura about all this, and Vicky oddly, like, oversteps her position and is like, "Well, I wanna come, I wanna see what she
Well, she
says."
does seem a little possessed, like she's, like, kinda desperate to go, and she's like, "Can I please?" And Liz is like, "Sure," but she's kinda worried about her, but she's like,
Yeah, she's like,
"What?"
"You can come, but FYI, you're being fucking weird
She is and
about."
oh, well, and she was also like, "I wanna see her face when she looks at the locket," and it's like, "You're the help, that's not your business," but she did not care, she was just, like, up in it, and Liz was like, "Okay, well, let's go, crazy."
Opening credits.
Mother is sitting in the fire, or practically in the fire, again, and they knock. She gets out of her Mother trance and invites them in.
She seems pleased to see Liz and Vicky, but less so the cop.
Well,
But she identifies all of the jewelry that he's brought as hers. She's like, "This is mine, and this is mine, and this is all mine," which, makes sense because it came from her apartment. But the cop also brings up again that whoever this dead body in the fire was had to have a key because all of the doors and windows were locked from the inside. Loris kinda mulls it over and is like, who could it be? Who could have been in my apartment?" And is, stalling for time and then suddenly is like, "Oh, I did have this cleaning lady named Margaret that I just made up, who I fired a couple of months ago.
conveniently.
It's possible that she could have still had a key. I don't remember if she gave it back or not because she doesn't exist. And also, she looked exactly like me.
Yeah,
Same height, same builds."
yeah,
She says,
but 10 years older. She was old. She's that old bitch.
she says, aside from that, she can't think of anybody else who might have been there. So the cop is satisfied with this. And he and Liz start to leave, but Vicky says she wants to stay behind to talk with Laura. And she confronts her about the locket and is like, "Hey, isn't that locket I definitely saw you wearing like 2 days ago and you gave a long monologue about while fondling it?" And Laura is just like, "No, silly. I mean, clearly it was in Phoenix and I just got it back, so I couldn't have had it on the other day." And she seems to be taking this whole thing pretty lightly and is just like, "Oh, you just must have imagined it because we were talking about it." And her voice gets all high pitched and fake. But then occasionally she cuts in with like a low, sinister voice, just like, "It must have just been your imagination." "Right, Vicky."
Yeah, that was funny. I was tickled by that.
And Vicky is appropriately threatened by this and hurries to leave, and she says her goodbyes, so Laura returns to sit too near to the fire. Back at the main house, Vicky asks the cop if he saw the body, and he says, "No, I did see a photo, though, but it's no use, it was unrecognizable." And she asks some more questions before the lieutenant leaves.
Inside, Frank is there with fish business, but also to see Vicky. Liz says that they can visit a while she looks over fish business and they go sit by the fire.
Vicky tells Frank about Laura and how she's creepy and how she brought strange happenings with her. She explains all about the detective and the jewelry and all of that. Frank, in a concerning pattern that is developing, is
Yeah.
dismissive of
Yeah,
this.
he's a dick and is emulating the stereotypical misogynistic 60s man. It's like we're watching somebody's YouTube parody of a condescending 50s husband. Like he should have a pipe and be like, "Oh gosh, Gladys dear, aren't you a dummy? You and your imagination, little lady." I hate him. Like he continues to treat her like she's a toddler. He's like, "Well, the locket couldn't be in two places at once, Vicky."
But
Like she's too stupid to understand.
Vicky doesn't buy that. She insists, "No, I
Yeah,
know what I saw,
she
and
stands on business.
Laura is lying about the locket." But he dismisses her concerns as he always does, and we see Liz eavesdropping and making concerned faces while Vicky and Frank go back and forth about it. But Liz interrupts to return the signed contracts, but also because she was listening and wants to chime in.
Yeah,
So
it's her turn to gaslight Vicky.
yeah, she also insists that Vicky has to be mistaken about seeing the locket before. Liz leaves Frank and Vicky alone, and Vicky goes on to explain all the other reasons why Laura is creepy, and David's spooky dreams and the spooky painting and these weird compulsions to act against her own will that have been overtaking
And
her.
he's like, "Well, that's just nonsense, little lady."
Frank clearly thinks she is crazy. You can see the, "Oh shit, I moved to this spooky, shitty little town for this hot girl, and now she's crazy."
Yeah, I feel that. But
But
he's like, "Well, it's just Collinwood that's creeping you out.
yeah,
You should get out more. And by out, let's go to dinner."
might as well see if I can get some before I move back to Bangor immediately.
Yeah.
She agrees, surprisingly, after he was just such a dick to
Well, it
her.
was the 60s. That was kind of standard. But yeah, he is an ass. I don't like Frank.
They go get their things to leave. In the empty drawing room, a family history book opens itself up. Vicky walks back into the drawing room after saying that she was going upstairs. Like she starts to walk upstairs and then, as if possessed, turns around and goes back into the drawing room.
Well, because Ghost Ghostet like Ghost Josette. No, that's not funny. I think I was stoned when I wrote that. Ghostet. Never mind.
I see what you're
I
going
was but
for,
it
but
just
it just
doesn't
doesn't
flow.
work.
I think it's funny written and in my head, but when I try to verbalize it, it sounds bad.
Anyway, Vicky and Liz are back in the drawing room, and Liz points out the open book and says, "Oh, were you looking at that picture of Josette wearing the locket?" And Vicky's like, "No, I wasn't looking at the book. It was closed when I was in here, and you saw me just walk back in." Liz exposits that Josette was the first owner of the locket, and it was given to her on her wedding day. Vicky thinks that perhaps it's a sign from Josette. Vicky starts to freak out and says she needs a minute to clear her head. Is it okay if she doesn't go mess with David right now? And Liz is like, "Sure, that's fine." So Vicky heads out to walk along the beach, and we see Laura hiding in the bushes and doing spooky faces before the end credits.
Yeah, she's walking in the sand and
Episode 145.
Victoria Winters tells us wah, 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 because the audio's fucked up.
Yeah, on episode 145, the audio is all garbled. We normally watch on the Internet Archive, which we were doing, but
Yeah, once
you
we
can't make out what's being said, so we checked over on Tubi to see if the dialogue was any more audible, and it was slightly better there, but also Tubi has the captions, but Internet Archive does not. So we took one for the team and watched this one with
yeah.
commercials.
That being said, what Victoria Winters was saying is that she was telling us the painting is creepy.
Yes, new information.
Yes, very pertinent. Had to go to Tubi to read it.
Yeah, so she reminds us that something spooky made her bring the spooky painting to the spooky house.
Spooky, spooky.
Now we're up to speed. In his room, David is staring at the painting as Laura enters, and she tells him that he's spending a lot of time looking at that painting, and she invites him instead to come have lunch with her, but he's not hungry. Laura remarks on not being able to find him yesterday, and he explains that he had gone into town with Vicky. She's awfully needy and wondering if he's avoiding her, but he denies it. He says that he feels as though the painting is trying to warn him about something. So he's trying to listen to the painting
Yeah,
to
she's
figure out what's going on.
like, "What?" And he's like, "Something bad."
Well, first, Laura
Oh.
says, maybe it's trying to tell you about how much I love you. And in a way, yes. But he says, no, it must be something bad. Opening credits. Man, the audio on this episode is rough.
It's real
At
bad.
this point, we had to pause, and Rebecca, I'm sorry, how dare I be informal with you in front of our listeners.
It's fine.
Uh,
It's
at any
Miss
rate,
Rebecca if you're nasty.
Rebecca at this point was like, "Should we maybe just mute it and just read the captions?" But it would be too difficult to take notes and do that at this, so we listened to it anyway.
I got a little sensory overloaded by it. I kind of was like, I can't listen to the garbledy uh, Peanuts adult voice very much, but
Anyhow, after the opening credits, David is telling Laura that he's wondering what might go in the empty spot in the painting, and he says, "Maybe it could be a man." But Laura says that that isn't likely. She also seems to be just annoyed with his fascination with the painting, and she tells him he just has a vivid imagination, but he tells her that the painting lights up at night and her big head comes out of it. Laura doesn't want to talk about this anymore and tries to get him to just come take a walk with her, but he doesn't want to. He wants to be alone. And she's clearly pissed, but is like, okay, maybe later. And at this point, we're starting to think, Laura doesn't seem to like this kid very much.
yeah,
Is she sure she wants to take him to live with her? Over at the Evanses,
Maggie is asking Sam about his painting and he wants to go get some fresh air and avoids it, basically covers it up and won't let her see. And he
he's
goes
being a
to
mean old meanie like he
he
always
wants
is.
to go get fresh air and smoke, and she's like, "You smoke too much," among other things, and he's like, "Don't I though?" Like, and I do at least appreciate his self-awareness, but he is sure shitty to Maggie, who then uncovers the painting of Moira.
Maggie peeks at the canvas and is upset about Bird Lady. Speaking of Bird Lady, a bit later, Laura arrives and asks to see Sam, but he isn't back yet. Laura is just kind of looking around and chit chatting and like, gee, this place hasn't changed since I last saw it 10 years ago. And she's sort of trying to covertly peek at what's on the easel. Maggie steps in the way, like, I know what you're up to, bird lady. And Maggie says that Sam has been acting weird since Laura has been in town and she wants to know why. Laura admits it and she's like, yeah, he has, right? That's why I'm here to clear some things up. Maggie just straight up asks Laura to explain Sam's weird obsession with her. Good for Maggie. Uh, not pussyfooting around, but Sam enters at this point and is clearly not excited to see Laura. Maggie has a date with Joe and she's like, okay, well, bye. You guys have fun or whatever.
Yeah,
And after Maggie leaves, Laura tells Sam that she likes Maggie and she's a nice girl and is worried about him. Laura asks him why he's being so weird about her. Like, Sam, I haven't done anything to you. Why are you making this weird for everybody?
right.
And why did you paint that awful painting of me? and he shows her the new, more awful version and asks her why he is painting it. And she gets real mad and is like, "Maybe because 'cause you're a loony fucking drunk." And
Yeah.
he explains to her that he's not painting this on purpose, that just every time he starts to paint anything, it just turns out as her on fire. He explains it as a compulsion, and she seems to figure something out at this point. She gets a little light bulb, and she warns him that he needs to stop. She orders him to destroy this new one that he's working on, and he tries to comply. He approaches the painting, but says he just can't. She warns him to stop painting, or she will see to it that he stops. He asks if that's a threat, and she's like, "Well, I mean, I guess,
Take it how you want.
but you're gonna stop is what I'm getting at." And then she exits dramatically,
She's
leaving
kind of a badass there. I kinda like Laura.
Laura is fun. On Discord, listener and patron Austin expressed that he's not super into this storyline. Thinks it's glaringly obvious that Laura is a spooky bird lady, and why is it taking so long for everyone to figure that out? Which, fair, but also soap opera. So,
I love her. I think she's ridiculous, and it
we
is goofy.
we haven't even gotten to the best parts. She makes so much more crazy faces than what she's done up to this point.
I look forward to seeing them.
At any rate, Maggie and Joe enter later to find the front room empty, and Maggie is being angsty about having to babysit her shitty father, and both Joe and I are relieved that she's finally realizing she's in an abusive, shitty situation, and she's either considering or just pipe dreaming about leaving Collinsport and going to maybe Boston or New York City. She's not interested in being a coffee shop waitress for the rest of her life and babysitting her shitty drunk father. And Joe kinda tries to guilt her into staying around for him.
Well,
Like,
yeah, she's
"Yes, I
talking
know
about
your life sucks, but stay for me."
well, it's actually sort of sweet, but I also get how that is also sort of, shitty. Like she's talking about how there's nothing where she looks into the future and doesn't want to be a waitress in Collinsport forever. And, she says, well, what is there good in this town? And because I think Joe's like, well, it's not all bad. And she's like, well, what is there in this town for me? And he's like, me. And she sort of softens and agrees. And but then she's like, well, what interest do you have in me? And it probably only goes as far as the coffee at the diner, and he teases about how hard her coffee is on people and how that couldn't be it, and that's cute, and he says
They
it has to go deeper than that, and she says, "How deep?" And he's like, "Well, let me show you." Not really, but
they kiss,
it's
and
sweet.
Rebecca cries.
I didn't cry.
You
I
did. I heard
didn't.
you sniffle.
I
You were
didn't. No, I didn't, like,
You
at all.
did.
No.
I
I would cop to it,
I
but I
heard.
did not.
And at that point, we take a break for me to spoil Maggie and Joe's future, but we won't tell you about that. Back at Collinwood in David's room, Laura creeps in and regards the painting. It's doing its little glowing business, but only when her back is turned, so she leaves. Unless she saw it and I just didn't see her
I
see
don't
it.
think she saw it.
Later, Sam is shit-faced and being ushered back into the house by Joe and Maggie, and she thanks Joe for helping them home and leaves.
He's drunkenly fighting with his coat and lays down on the couch smoking a cigarette while Maggie goes to make coffee.
Again, the spooky Laura is up to something. Music starts up. Over at Collinwood, Laura approaches the fireplace to stare menacingly into the fire. We cut back to Sam on the couch with his cigarette, and he is getting sleepy. very, very sleepy.
And
His
there's a
eyelids are getting heavy. Slow crossfade of Laura's spooky eyes, and Sam passes out, and the cigarette falls to the sofa, and black smoke begins to fill the screen, and we see.
Sam is consumed with smoke, and we all cheer. The end.
Yeah, Sam is on the couch as the room fills with smoke, and we see the fire from the Collinwood fireplace superimposed before the end credits.
Hip hip hooray.
Yeah, I like the Bird Lady stuff. I'm having a good time. I can see how you might get impatient with it though, because it is a lot of her being obviously spooky and magic somehow, and no one really taking notice.
Yeah, I can see that. I, uh, I enjoy everybody being hypnotized by her, and I would like to see a little more of Burke and Carolyn. Although I'm mad at Burke still, so I don't wanna see his ass, but Carolyn is fun, and we haven't seen her in the last few episodes.
Follow us on Instagram at Ghosts Want You Dead. Join us on Patreon to hear our fun bonus episodes. Patreon.com/Ghosts Want You Dead. This program is brought to you by Amy and Austin and Jacob, and you could be next.
Yes, please do those things.